Welcome to the show. Just as every chef serves every dish, my signature offering is COVID. So let's walk you through now with the very latest on COVID-19. Nothing new. 12%. Same thing as May 20th. Since 27th, people had at least one dose. We're at over 62% at 74.6. $47.5 and 87,000 million. And 221 million have had at least have been fully vaccinated. But who's counting anyway? That's 67.1 and 62.6. But that's why we're going to end COVID early. Because there's another issue going on, and that is the shooting. Now, for the past few days on this broadcast, we brought you the very latest on the shooting in Uvalde, Texas. Now, just 4 hours ago, the NRA convention enters the second day in Houston with its conference. So let's take a look at the NRA conference that just happened 4 hours ago.
Texas grapple with mass shootings that took their loved ones. The NRA is holding its annual convention this weekend in Houston. CBS's Robert Costa is outside the convention center. Bob, the headliner, of course, was former President Donald Trump, who spoke yesterday defending gun rights and calling for hardening schools. Many attendees there support the former president, but in your conversations, is his base shifting at all?
Talking to attendee after attendee, it's clear they still very much embrace the former president, but they're also eyeing their options for the upcoming 2024 presidential race. Along with the Trump 2024 hats we also saw T-shirts for Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz.
Bob, now what does this weekend tell us about the debate over gun reform that will play out back in Washington?
The gun talks are beginning in Washington. Some Democrats are talking with some Republican senators, but the activists here at the NRA, they don't want to see anything changed. They want to continue to hold their hardline position on firearms, and they're telling Republicans to hold the line.
Bob Costa, thank you.
So that was the very latest from the NRA. But the other issue is the answers from the Uvalde police. We'll get to that in just a minute, but there are red flags that people can.
Congress is on its.
But there is red flags people can look out for. Let's take a look.
Congress is on its Memorial Day recess until June the 6th, but some lawmakers are working through the break to find a compromise on new gun safety legislation. CBS's Adriana Diaz takes a look at one option getting renewed attention: red flag laws.
Sheila Hull's son Brandon was troubled, so when he bought himself a gun, she used Indiana's red flag law to alert police.
If you're going to red flag anybody, that would be one person to red flag.
Police did take her son's gun away, but prosecutors did not pursue a red flag designation that would have prevented him from buying any more firearms. He went on to buy 2 assault rifles a few months later and used them last year to storm this FedEx plant, killing 8 before killing himself.
I won't grieve his death because he made a choice to take others. So that's on him. I'll grieve for the victims because they did nothing.
Indiana is one of 19 states that empowers a judge to take away a firearm from anyone who poses an extreme risk to themselves or others. But Hull says a red flag law is only effective when it's enforced. One study shows in Connecticut, for every 10 to 20 firearms removed, a life is saved. And in California, there have been at least 21 cases where a red flag law disarmed someone threatening a mass shooting.
Red flag laws reduce the risk of gun violence. It may not work 100% of the time, but if you can save even some proportion of those lives, that's had a real impact.
In Indiana, Brandon Hull didn't even have to be deemed mentally ill to be red flagged. Do you think the victims would have been alive if this red flag law worked?
I believe that 100%.
After the shooting here, the law was streamlined to make the red flag process move more quickly. And Margaret, one idea being discussed in Washington is a federal red flag law.
Adriana, we'll be talking more about that. Thank you.
And we will be talking about that when we come back. Coming up next, more on the Uvalde school shooting, why it took the police so long, and everyone wants answers. We'll get to those answers when we come back. Up front tonight, there are more questions to be asked after days after the shooting in Uvalde, Texas, and at Hobbs Elementary. So let's take a look at from CBS News.
Good evening. Tonight, no adjective can capture the level of anger emanating from Uvalde, Texas. Today, families are trying to process the news that authorities waited before entering the classroom where a gunman took 21 lives in the nation's 27th school shooting so far this year. Today, in his commencement address at the University of Delaware, President Joe Biden remembered the young lives lost.
As I speak, those parents are literally preparing to bury their children. In the United States of America, to bury their children. There's too much violence, too much fear, too much grief. We cannot outlaw tragedy, I know, but we can make America safer.
CBS's Omar Villafranca is in Uvalde, Texas for us. Omar, good evening.
Good evening. Thousands of people have streamed into this park in Uvalde to cry together and to pray together. And they're also asking questions. The biggest one, why officers took so long to stop the shooter. Songs of salvation mixed with sorrow today as the small community of Uvalde, Texas came together after being ripped apart by Tuesday's massacre.
We represent you first and foremost, Father God.
While hundreds of residents prayed for strength, investigators are still looking for answers into Uvalde School Police Chief Pete Arredondo's decision to not allow a Border Patrol tactical team to confront the shooter for more than 40 minutes, while students and teachers inside the classroom called 911.
And of course it was not the right decision. It was a wrong decision, period. There's no excuse for that.
We asked the social networking app Yubo about reports the suspect threatened rapes and school shootings on its platform. Yubo responded. Due to active investigation by law enforcement, we cannot publicly share details on an individual user's data at this time. We're also hearing from the shooter's mother. I have no words. I have no words to say because I don't know what he was thinking. Angelica, John, and their 10-year-old son Jacob Garcia came from Colorado to pay their respects. John is a Texas native and spent 20 years in the Army. After several deployments in war zones, he never thought he'd see similar horrors at home.
To see that over there is one thing, but to see it here in your country, it's another thing. But to see it in your state, it's totally different. Not one, not two, 19 kids, 2 adults, the teachers. The kids were saving each other. The teachers were saving the kids in the classroom. It's just a horrific event.
Troopers did not update residents or the press on the latest on the investigation today. Tomorrow, President Biden will be in town to grieve with the community. Adriana?
Omar Villafranca, thank you.
But why was it the police decision to, why did the police make the wrong decision? Take a look.
Good evening, and thank you all for joining us on this Friday night. I'm Margaret Brennan in for Nora. There is growing outrage tonight after Texas police admit to multiple failures in their response to the school massacre in Uvalde, Texas. Today we learned that the officer in charge at the time of the shooting ordered law enforcement not to enter the classroom where children were being terrorized by a gunman. Those children were repeatedly calling 911, begging for police help while officers waited nearby. But the officer in charge believed the gunman had barricaded himself and was no longer an active shooter. It was a deadly decision. All this was taking place as desperate parents outside the school pleaded with the police to intervene. The Texas governor tonight said he was misled about the police response and is livid. Now there's an investigation into not only the gunman, but how police responded to the massacre. And of course, for the families of the victims, this news is causing even more heartbreak. We have a lot to get to tonight, and CBS's Lilia Luciano will start us off from Uvalde. Good evening.
Good evening, Margaret. Well, the governor is livid. Imagine those parents who learned today that there were 19 officers outside that classroom. One officer for every child that was killed. I heard from 3 parents today who said they will do whatever it takes for accountability and gun control.
Of course it was not the right decision. It was a wrong decision, period. There's no excuse for that.
Today, a stunning admission. The director of the Texas Department of Safety said the decision to not immediately engage the shooter was deliberate.
The on-scene commander considered a barricaded subject and that there was time and there were no more children at risk. Obviously, based upon the information we have, there were children in that classroom that were at risk, and it was, in fact, still an active shooter situation.
At one point, he said 19 officers were outside the classroom, not moving on the gunman. Inside, a desperate child repeatedly called 911, pleading for them to come in and save them.
She's called back and said there was 8 to 9 students alive. Child called back, was told to stay on the line and be very quiet. She told 911 that he shot the door. At approximately 12:43 and 12:47, she asked 911 to please send the police now. At 12:46, she said that she could hear the police next door. At 12:50, shots are fired.
It is unclear how many of those 8 or 9 children survived. Fingers are now being pointed at the school district's chief of police, who McCraw said instructed tactical teams from Border Patrol and ICE to wait for nearly 50 minutes.
A decision was made that this is a barricaded subject situation. There was time to retrieve the keys and wait for a tactical team with the equipment to go ahead and breach the door and take on the subject at that point.
The revelation on the failure to act sooner comes after frantic parents stood outside the school during the shooting, begging heavily armed officers outside to help, as their children were trapped by the gunman.
I was pissed at first. I'm more pissed than ever.
Jesse Rodriguez's 10-year-old daughter Annabelle was one of the 21 killed.
They let us
let our baby get slaughtered, sacrificed, while their ass is sitting behind a wall.
We're also learning more details on how the gunman got inside. He crashed his car outside just before 11:30 a.m. and fired into the school. The school resource officer was not at the school at the time. The gunman, seen here in this video, enters the school through a door that had been propped open by a teacher who called 911. He would fire more than 100 rounds from his AR-15 style rifle inside the school. Tonight, Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who earlier praised the police response, changing his tune.
The information that I was given turned out in part to be inaccurate, and I'm absolutely livid about that.
19 students and 2 teachers at Robb Elementary School should have been starting the first day of their summer break today. Instead, their families are making funeral plans. Federal law enforcement tells CBS News tonight that Border Patrol agents did press local law enforcement to go into the school and that they ultimately did so on their own initiative. Margaret.
Lilia, thank you.
So that's how we know what happened. There's more. Give me a break when we return, especially an investigation from Lisa Guerrero. Don't miss this, and don't go away. Now let's bring you up to date on one story we're following. If you noticed some weeks ago, we focused on the DeKalb County schools who had a lot of issues with their schools, and students who posted videos about their messy schools, 100-year-old buildings, rat sewage, raw sewage, all that kind of stuff. But the superintendent was fired, and just weeks ago, the attorney for the fired says, "We'll take them all on." Clint Rucker is the attorney for Cheryl Watson Harris, who is fired. Not the attorney, the superintendent. Rucker did sign specific statements with the school board member, but there was a recent notable example of a board member bashing her in a public meeting. He's also concerned by the recent release of confidential performance violation of Watson Harris. He said only a handful of people had access to the board, including the board members themselves and the superintendent. Under state law, government agencies can wait to hold confidential evaluations for public employees. Rucker called the release of the report terrible. A trial could offer the public glimpse of how the current school board operates. But we'll keep you posted as it goes along. Give Me a Break continues in just a moment. After that shooting in Texas, there is more threats happening, especially from Georgetown ISD. 4 people were arrested in Minter schools. Georgetown ISD also investigating incidents. 4 people taken into custody. 2 are suspects. Student absence excused, non-essential visitors are not allowed. But the chief of police said the department became aware of a threat against Minter ISD schools Wednesday night. And there was text on the video that happened on May 26. The district posted on social media midnight Thursday. After that, effective that day was suspending all non-essential visitors in schools that have increased law enforcement. So it's probably their safety alert. These threats come days after more than a dozen students and 2 teachers were killed in a mass shooting elementary school in Uvalde, Texas. In Wisconsin, there was a bomb threat happening. Title 1 acts of sexual harassment investigation. There's outside media attention and safety threats against the schools. Students being investigated because of a letter being sent. It dates back to Title I Acts dated back to 1972, and it was designed to protect against discrimination. In its inception, Title I acts as a person's sex, but now, 5 decades later, its applications involve another person protected against their sexual orientation or identity. But after that shooting, there was probably more bomb threats happening. But other media outlets reported that Albertson alerted families saying County schools will finish up the school year virtually, but they haven't posted anything on its website or social media program about it. And from CBS Also, a 15-year-old in Gainsborough North student accused of drawing threats against the school on the test. That's terroristic threats right there. Teens due back in court on Friday, June 3rd, which is next week. Richfield High School closed Friday out of caution after a social media threat. Civilian men arrested for social media school threats. I mean, the whole reason why these threats happened was because many people don't want to go to school. I get these people. Nobody wants to go to school. But we all have to do things we don't want to do. That's part of growing up. You don't want to go to school, you don't want to go to work, but you have to go to work to get a job. That's how it all is. And if you don't agree with me, it's your choice to make. But if you make that choice, you got to choose everything that goes along with it. Okay, how much time do we got left? I've got 9 minutes left, so. And just 3 days ago, Orange Grove High School, City of Alice, held a blood drive in support of people in Uvalde, Texas. Watch.
Boom! I was able to.
Blood centers closer to Uvalde are getting an abundance of blood donations. Officials with the Coastal Bend Blood Center say they are on standby should there be the need for more help. And to ensure that readiness, as well as secure our own local blood supply, schools are working to host blood drives like the Orange Grove High School.
So I called her immediately this morning, bright and early, and asked her if she could please send a bus our way for tomorrow so we could get this going for them. I have grandbabies that are that age. It hits really close to home. You never know.
So that drive will be happening tomorrow morning in front of the high school from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Bartosz says she's invited the surrounding communities to donate. To schedule an appointment, you're going to want to call 361-389-0161. School leaders say there is increased security personnel on this campus as well this week.
And the City of Alice is also responding to the tragedy in Uvalde, offering police, fire, and administrative help to that community. They're also hosting a blood drive on Tuesday, May 31st, with all donations being sent to Uvalde. That'll happen at the City Hall from 1:30 to 4:30 in the afternoon. If you want more information on how you can help, just check out our website, KIIITV.com.
When we come back, the U.S. reflects on another school shooting massacre. We've had a lot of school shootings, but we're months away from the 10-year anniversary of another school shooting in Connecticut. Please don't go away. When public schools began, it was just basically like a safe place to be, to learn and all that. But now I guess there's more school threats happening. The whole reason that is basically because basically nobody wants to go to school because they hate their students, because they're being bullied. It's become a thing. Like in the first episode, Everybody Hates Chris. I think I've learned this. I don't want to be racist, but I think I should say it. School shootings are written by a black man, but stolen by us white people. That is what the show said. So don't accuse me of racism. Take a look.
Finally tonight, the carnage in our nation's schools has become painfully repetitive. We look to the past as we mark another excruciating tragedy. Here's Jim Axelrod.
They are the familiar stations of the horrendous journey we've made far too many times the last couple of decades.
Shut up.
A 911 call. Stricken parents rush to a campus-turned-crime scene and endure a torturous wait to see if they'll get to hug their child or bury them. Then, the next part of the cycle.
Our kids go to school wondering whether they will survive the day.
The debate about what should be done.
I can't assure the American people there's any law we can pass to stop this shooting.
Which so far has ended in nothing. Here's what there should be no debate about. We are outliers among industrialized nations. In the 10 years since Newtown, 77 students have been killed in mass school shootings. In the 23 since Columbine, an estimated 311,000 have experienced gun violence.
It seems totally unreal to me.
You just never would have imagined that it would have happened in such a small town like this. And it's just unreal.
Unreal? We better find another word. Because the slaughter of children in classrooms may now be our most distinctive national characteristic. Why were 3 teenage girls gunned down in a hall of their high school? I've written this story too many times over the last 25 years. Paducah, Kentucky was my first school shooting in December of 1997. A judge is expected to order that Michael Carneal be tried as an adult. And crushingly, the suspect had 7 fully loaded. Uvalde won't be my last. I am like so many other Americans, numb. Tonight, here's the saddest part of where we are. As Americans consider what the latest massacre might produce, horror, resignation, deep, incapacitating despair, sure. But if recent history is any guide, change won't find its way onto the list. How in God's name is that possible? Jim Axelrod, CBS News, New York.
And how possible is that? Now, if you were attending graduation, you may have seen more security happening. Because of that shooting, they ordered to extend the security away from the shooting. So, here's Seth Kovar.
The shooting comes as high schools all across the country. Are holding their graduation ceremonies. They could put thousands of people together in the same place at the same time with thoughts of Uvalde fresh on their minds. Our Seth Kovar lets us know why one local school district was confident going into their graduation tonight that it would be a safe one.
We want to celebrate our kids, but our hearts are certainly with the families.
The families of the 19 little kids who died in the Uvalde school shooting. They were on the minds of those who went to the London High School graduation at the American Bank Center tonight. But school leaders kept the focus on their big kids who were walking the stage.
We're all heartbroken as educators, but we will make note of that. But it's about celebrating London graduates, their accomplishments, and sending them on to bigger and better things.
The large gathering could have been an attractive target for a mass shooter, which is why I reached out to ABC leaders.
The American Bank Center didn't make any changes to security ahead of graduation season and in light of the Uvalde shooting. So let's take a look at what protocols they do have in place to keep students, their families, and school staff members safe.
Number one, everyone who comes in for any special events like London High's graduation tonight must go through a metal detector. No weapons are allowed. To make sure no one tries to sneak one in, all bags must be clear except for small clutch bags or purses. London ISD chose the ABC to be the site of their graduation months ago. Coincidentally, the venue's safety protocols are providing some comfort to graduation goers in the wake of the Uvalde shooting.
We've had many events here, but with the metal detectors, the extra screening, the heightened security, I'm confident that we've picked the best spot for tonight.
One graduation goer, who graduated herself from Flower Bluff High School yesterday, wasn't worried about safety tonight, but she is worried that it could be just a matter of time before the next school shooting.
I'm confident that because this incident just happened, that everyone is on extra high alert, but I'm not sure how long the vigilance will last.
Reporting in Corpus Christi, Seth Kovar, Chris 6 News.
And it could happen again, as Seth said. But things have to be done. So what can be done? We have to make sure the students are safe. Schools have to have extra security. And that extra security can cost a lot of money. I mean, just hours ago, I was looking at an article that had a security thing that cost over $400,000, and I'm thinking to myself, and people are like, maybe we should use that. And I'm thinking to myself, that's a lot of money. But we have our own police station in Flower Bluff, so that's the best thing. But metal detectors, that costs a lot of money. Banning backpacks from Tulsa Midway, that's the way to start with. I mean, that's what Oxford did, and that's how it ended there. That's how it ended there. Because Monday is going to be the 6-month anniversary of that shooting in Oxford. Monday, a look back. Then I'll be off the rest of that week because of my voice. And my voice improves, I'll come back on. If not, I'm going to take the rest of that week off. So, with that in mind, that's all of this edition. Give me a break Saturday going to Sunday. We'll see you again for Give Me a Break Monday on Memorial Day with the 6-month anniversary of the Oxford school shooting. And if my voice feels better, I can come back on. But if not, I'm going to have to take the rest of that week off. For all of us here at Give Me a Break and YouTube, good night.